Oh yeah, we got that rock and roll. I gotta hurry up because I'm on the clock. Free tax clinic special march. Steel toe boots for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, firefighters, across the North American Collective, from Montreal, H-A-W-K, Hawk Island, Canada. Gotta turn the head left or right before you cross the street, because you never know if they go fast, then you cannot brake. And you gotta press they press the accelerator instead of the brake, then you got less seconds on the clock. So my allies and armies, pledge your allegiance, lead special tax, special event made less than 11,000. Less than 11,000. Last survived, I'm gonna call it event special. Survived on less than 11,000. That's what I'm gonna call it. Survived on less than 11,000 session. Just gonna drop something here. The garbage. We're gonna rock and roll all the way east. I'm gonna go with that. And that's about it. Whoopsie. So let's go on that rock and roll in the sun. Oh yes. My Pope the King, the sun shines and kind of feels above, way above normal temperatures of what is supposed to be at least, but we've been getting kind of climate change type of temperatures. Canada voted, Canada decided where my dragons at, pledge your allegiance. And of course, Mark Carney, the Liberal Party, they got a round to go, and tough economic geopolitical times. You know me, I have Asperger's, so I have these special interests, and one of those special interests is geopolitics. So I'm going to be doing, when I get back home after I get this work done and after I get some marching, I'm going to be doing a lot of geopolitical analysis and theorizing. But now I got to just keep on marching east, because then I got to come back west and do the taxes. It's 8:53 a.m. in the morning, left a little bit late. Time management and being late and tardy is a problem for many Aspies, you know. People with Asperger's like myself, we have that characteristic, because it's not symptoms. Symptoms is for a mental illness, and Asperger's is not. It's just a neurological mental divergent condition. But of course, I always got to work on it, and it's kind of hot. Early this morning, it's not even 9 o'clock. Kind of got 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, 1 to cross the street. But here we are, grateful, thankful. My rent's paid, electricity bill's paid, and got cool food and coffee. Thank you for the coffee donation. That was greatly appreciated. And gotta step it on the toes and just go straight like an arrow. Congratulations, I guess, to Carney, but you know my position is the king is absent. Part of the general call to the dancing goddess in the dragon kingdom, which is fundamentally a call for a public-private partnership with PVP across the North American Collective to fuse Canada and United States in a similar North American private-public partnership-centric, centrist, PPP-based, strong, fundamentally PPP-based for SSD, security, service, and defense, and rebirth and mass finance citizens' fitness, mass finance tourism, and building those 44 tunnels, constructing 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war, because we are, of course, on the verge of a thermonuclear war. Of course, I guess it could happen any minute. That World War III begins and commences, and that is always a possibility, you know, as I go all the way. Well, not all the way, because Hawk Island, Montreal is a big island, but a little bit on the way, on the steps, you know, in steel toe boots. And gotta think about the truckers, farmers, bakers, butchers, firefighters, LOV. I'm always meditating in terms of geopolitics. It's 24/7, a constant thing, you know, with Aspies. Our mental capacities, mental faculties are dedicated to our special interests, and my holy trinity is geopolitics, sports, fitness, dancing is my favorite sport, and of course rock and roll, and I always does rock and roll and get into rock and roll trances. Now I'm a bit on the tardy side, and check the fridge quickly. Hopefully it'll be full. I wish I would bake it full and make a big donations, you know. But of course, food security starts with the farmers, food producers, and it's tough times. And this part one event here on this 29th of April. I'm gonna call it surviving on less than 30,000. Surviving on less than 30,000. 30,000, less than 30,000. Actually survived in not even less than 30,000, but I survived less than, correction, 11,000. I was thinking of somebody else because I was having that discussion yesterday. And of course, how somebody else survived on less than 30,000 Canadian dollars. So I said parallel, I have survived to 2024 on less than 11,000. So I said, well, that's quite more than half, you know, so even less than half. So I had that financial economic discussions and how, of course, the prices have been increased. That's why I'm calling on the NFL, NHL, NBA, and MLB, the four patriarchal sports leagues, and to, of course, reduce the cost of the tickets by 44.9%, 44.9%, and to give 44.9% reduction, and to give some tickets to the bus drivers, those who pick up the garbage, the recycling, the compost, in other words, the public workers, and they got some movers, they got some bakers, some cooks, got a Dragon Army cadence for them as well, you know, got to get that cadence for the Dragon Army also, and for the construction workers who build majestic buildings like this, you know. I always admire, and this is one of my favorite in Montreal in terms of big buildings, and there was some renovation work done last year. There was a little bit of that renovation work on it, so I always meditate how it was done. You know, it takes those cranes, that brains and muscle to build it, and sometimes what you always got to do on the terms of, you know, the construction that's happening now, you know, brick by brick, and you know, just how yours truly have survived COVID and died of COVID back in 2020 had COVID, and celebrating, marking, of course, a little bit of that for the marking of the COVID with that, and that's what I celebrate, you know, doing on that and making on that interposition on the love. So it's something which I gotta meditate, you know. Here as I cross the street and all the North American Civilizational Collective. So the king is absent. My making the statement the king is absent is, of course, my objection to our prime minister. This is going to be sworn in soon, that there's still a pledge of allegiance to the King of England and his heirs in Canada. This king is absent, it's time for the Republic, so there's still a pledge of allegiance to the King of England and his heirs. In Canada, there's still a pledge of allegiance to the King of England and his heirs, and we got to get that Republic because the king is absent. It's time for us to liberate ourselves and get the North American Central Collective, of which we constitute a civilizational complex, and geopolitically, of course, the best we merge our main geopolitical interest, regardless of other consideration, XYZ factors, is to have the best, most cordial relations with our brothers and sisters in the USA. That is our primary, regardless of other things, that's a constant. So that is just like the pi number in mathematics. So the pi number in mathematics is 3.1416, and it continues, right? So just like the pi number, so is our main geopolitical interest as Canadians. Our main geopolitical interest as Canadians is to have the best, most cordial relations with the United States. That is just how it is. That is just how it is. So that is a constant. I'm not speaking about other things that are more on the emotional, sentimental side. I'm speaking just from geopolitics. And you got to keep in mind that I have Asperger's. I'm an Asper in geopolitics. When it comes to geopolitics, that I am an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. And it's notable to mention and make a mention that I have predicted what's happening now back in 2019. Back in 2019, I have predicted what's happening now. In a general manner, back in 2019, I've predicted what's happening now back in 2019, and of course, I have predicted that, and that's how we're gonna get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get on that prediction, you know. So I predicted it in a conclusion in 2019 in October that, due of course to several factors, of which one of the fundamental factors was that many nation-state civilizations were not able to fully resolve their conflicts from the 20th century, mainly from the Second World War, that these are going to restart, reignite, and they're going to recommence, maybe with further more intensity. So that was the main thesis kind of prediction, or one of the main common denominators. It was deep and in analysis, because that's what I do on the daily, but fundamentally that was part of my prediction, due to those factors of the aforementioned, which I have said, those are the aforementioned factors which I have said, and that is what I gotta do with that, and that's how we gotta get doing with that. So something which we gotta get doing on the go. And so fundamentally keep that in mind when I discuss geopolitics. I also always make a point of reference to that point in time, because that is one of my major geopolitical analysis, which was on spot. So in 2019, October, November, I had concluded that in the coming 7 years, so starting October, November 2019, there will be an international conflagration based on several factors of analysis. But some of the main factors were, of course, what I said before, that due to the fact that many civilizations and nation states were not able to fully resolve their conflicts, that these conflicts are going to restart or reignite. And that's what has been happening in a general manner since the 20th century, because the Russia-Ukraine situation is an unconcluded conflict, So they have not concluded their conflict, which dates from the 20th century. From the 20th century, Israel, the Middle East as well. China, Russia. Correction. China, Taiwan. China, Republic of China, Taiwan. And the Republic of China, Taiwan. Republic of China. And of course the Republic of China. The Republic of China, Taiwan is known as the Republic of China, and People's Republic of China is known as the mainland China. So their conflict dates from the 20th century. And that is a possibility of a conflict on the horizon, as we have seen, of course, that there has been an upgrade and a militarization of China, aggressive militarization, and they have, of course, developed furthermore nuclear warheads and ICBM rockets, which they have not in the past 44 years. So that is a notable point of interjection and to mention of that fact, so there's a lion there. So that's what it is with that, and that's just what it is on the horizon. And plus we're on the verge of a public financial collapse in Canada. Public financial collapse in Canada. We're on the verge in Canada of a public financial collapse due to the fact that we paid last year $46.5 billion in interest on the debt. I would have loved more addressing of that issue, and I would have loved the more addressing of the issue, of course, that we're gonna go doing on the go, so that's what we're gonna get doing with that. So we're gonna get doing on the love, and that's what we gotta get doing on the do, something which we gotta do on that beautiful blue. It's a nice blue, nice. Love me some of those construction workers, plumbers, and that's how we gotta get doing with that, something which we gotta be on the love side, and we gotta be transmitting, and we gotta be on the love side of things, as we go now with my fellow citizens here, going on some work value, going on some work, and going on some XYZ, That's a happy place, man. And we gotta pass the torch sometimes, I guess now, Connie, but again, I wish and I will for the dissolution of the current established Canadian political order, because I know actually that in today's world the Republic is best, and my way of using Canada, United States best, my way of using Canada, United States best, to fuse Canada in a complex Canada, United States of the 63 political entities which are public-private partnership based, and wherein we established the Dragon Army, aka North American integrated People's Imperium, SSD Force, SSDS, to stand for Principle of Security, Service and Defense, to start for the Principle of Security, Service and Defense, to start for the Security, Service and Defense Protocol. And we got a new building there, a new business, I guess, because that was decrepit for like 3.5 years. That was left with no business in it, and I was kind of wondering what was going on, and that's how we gotta get doing with that. So I guess maybe it closed here and it went over there. I'm assuming, I don't know, I gotta ask. Because this one is to come shop here a bit, but it seems like that one closed a few, I don't know when, but so we gotta get doing with that, you know. Gotta get it on the go, so something which we gotta get on that left side, you know. Regardless to say, businesses are opening, businesses are closing, and that's how we gotta get doing on the business. And gotta salute firefighters, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks. Those are gonna pick up the recycling. Like for this, the recycling here, you know. The recycling, the compost, all that we got services, you know. We got those services across the North American plateau, across the North American Collective. So that's why I'm calling for the donation. To donate, of course, tickets, of course, to the public workers, those who pick up the garbage, the compost, the recycling, the compost, the recycling, and the garbage. I got 3 services, you know. So that's what I gotta be thinking about. See, garbages such as this, we gotta be mindful of so much labor being done. See my fellow public worker there? As the sun now rises over Montreal, Hawk Island, I'm gonna get out of the way, you know. All the butchers, bakers, it takes brains. Takes brains and muscle. Takes muscle and brains, you know. So I don't know his financial situation as I'm doing an event now, you know. So my event, I guess, it's post-election. Survived on less than 11, you know. I guess you can pass. Oh my gosh. Survived on less than 11,000, you know. Survived on less than 11,000, you know. Survived on less than 11,000. Survived on less than 11,000, and I gotta give a shout out because yellow flowers is something which I love, and those are really beautiful. Really beautiful. So thank you for the public workers who made that work, and please NFL National Football League, NHL National Hockey League, NBA National Basketball Association, MLB. Please donate some tickets, hockey tickets, basketball tickets, football tickets. Oh, wow. Football tickets, hockey tickets, all sorts of tickets to the public workers. And that's what we gotta be doing, man. Gotta be sharing a little bit. I'm financially stressed, struggling, broke but got rich, wealthy, trillions of kisses to lay the foundations for the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, which is fundamentally, of course, a call for a public-private partnership across the collective North American civilizational complex, across North America, the kingdom, dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom. We have to get rid of the border because we have to focus on security for coast to coast, ocean to ocean best. The ports and the airports. The ports and the airports best. The ports and the airports best if we focus on the ports and the airports. The ports and the airports best. As we're gonna get to that functioning and functionality to focus on what the ports and the airports are, and that's what we're gonna get doing on that, you know. So it's something which we gotta be on the trajectory side of things as we are with LOVE, you know, that takes some action, takes some brains, takes some muscle to pick up that garbage. So public works, man. Major aqueducts being built now, highways, truckers. The North American Civilizational Complex is a new collective civilizational complex which is not totally divorced, but is distinct from Western civilization. As I enjoy this sun getting hotter and hotter and hotter, encouraging all to work out, train, exercise. Celebrating more than 45 months now since I stopped watching pornography. And it's funny because yesterday one of my friends asked me, "What you doing? You watching porn?" And I said, "No, I haven't watched porn in more than 3.5 years." But I have a weird sexuality, you know. I am androgynous pansexual. You get 50-50, 50-50, 50-50. You get that 50-50, 50-50, 50-50, 50-50. That's what it is with that. You get that 50-50, you know. And I am pansexual. I love that BDSM. Switch friends with benefits only from now on. Thanks for understanding. And you have to know what Asperger's is, because I can be weird, odd, and we're not mentally ill. We're just neurodivergent. Our brains are different, and so we look at the world in a different way, and we can be sometimes pretty rude or direct or straightforward, and rude and direct and straightforward, but that's why we are sometimes. And you know, I have artistic inclinations, and for years, you know, I've been working kindness and loving kindness, and loving kindness is something which I got a bit on that inclination to do and to do for others. And sometimes you just got to be simplified things and make a little bit more simplistic. But as much as Asperger's, you know, we have a tendency to use overly verbose, sophisticated intellectual language, which is not proponent or is not conducive to furthering the explanation or of explaining something, whether mathematical or in my case geopolitics. And me, it's 24/7 geopolitics, sports, fitness, dancing is my favorite sport, and rock and roll, because those are my special interests, and those preoccupy my time. And sometimes we have a tendency to neglect other things to neglect, you know. And that's the problem with Asperger's. And again, I'm part of a tiny minority, and there's not a lot of Aspies in the world. We're less than 1%, less than half, less than 0.44. So 0.44 is 0.44 is not a lot of people who have Asperger's. It's not a lot of people who have Asperger's. So it's not, we're not a lot. We're not a lot of Aspies, and that's what it is with Asperger's, you know. So our brains are different, and so we look at the world differently, and we can be pretty weird, and it can be certain things in the social communication which can be seemingly very odd and strange to others. And you know, there's a misassociation with criminality or mental illness again, or other such things, which is not proper, because the whole problem is that there's a lot of progress being done lately as to education around Asperger's, but there's a lot of misinterpretation also, and misjudgments and mislabeling, and it's just a neurodivergent which causes us to be... Hi. Oh, I'm really broke. I'm really broke. A lighter? No, I don't smoke. Let me see if I don't have money. I don't have. I wish I would have given $5, but let me see if I have some change. I'm not gonna give 10 cents. That's what I have. 5 cents. I wish I would. If I would have had money, I would have given a 5 or 20 even to the bigger. But I'm in the minus at the bank, you know. I'm in the minus. You see in my past videos. See my past videos. So, but I would definitely be charitable. Please BNS, give 10%. And rehabilitation is important, you know. I always say if I would have stayed where I used to be living, I would have probably been, who knows, dead or in jail. And a lot of Aspies, we suffer from depression and suicidal tendencies. So being suicidal and depression is a major struggle for Aspies, but not anymore. I've been depressed, and I'm just gonna stay a little bit out from the children there, because their safety and, you know, their joy. And I wrote children's books and get that story time to get it on, and just gonna wait here until they grow. And gotta get those workers, and gonna pass by them here. That's what I gotta do, you know, for the children, you know. children French and English here, and I've written children's books, and I love doing story time, and they were so joyous. I love reading children's books, English and French. I've written children's books, but I couldn't cover the $500 cost. I couldn't cover the $500 cost. I couldn't cover the $500 cost. And this one is a building which I will to rehabilitate that one. Because the reminders triggers me past life. You know, I believe I'm a mystic as well. And I believe in reincarnations. And it's been decades that they're trying to do something there. And, you know, that image there with the ancient Egyptian motifs. I have lived on this island. I was born in the United States 3 times. Post 7076. Post 7076, 7076. Once as a woman, twice a man in the United States, and sometimes a man, a woman, and now you're gonna get that 50-50, you know? Gonna get that 50-50, and you know, that's what it is with that. And maybe one day gonna publish my children's books. Are kind of simple. They revolve around nature, civilization, firefighters, and public works, and butchers, and constructions, and cranes, and things of that nature. And there's dance interjected in it. Dancing moves. So there's dancing moves interjected, and there's dancing and hopping and physical ed incorporated in the books. Go Hydro-Quebec, go, gotta think, you know, I saw the truck, and Hydro-Quebec workers of the past 20th century, I gotta be thinking about them. That's why we got electricity, you know. Civilization is a privilege. You gotta get it on the go, and gotta get it on the do. That's what it is with that, but that's how we gotta do it, you know. So it's something which we gotta be loving, you know. Here we got some public workers who are gonna take care of that. So all the civilization, you know, it's a privilege having running water, electricity. Oh, imagine underneath all the aqueducts, which were built underneath, all the aqueducts across the cities of North America, for us to have, of course, running water, potable water. I always do meditation in these certain circumstances as an artist, philosopher, and got Asperger's, so it's geopolitics, public works is part of a major geopolitical event, you know, because public works is of course a major aspect of civilization. Public works, churches, those there, see, there are public works going there, fixing the aqueducts, and that's all we gotta get doing with that. And they're doing some muscle, they're doing some brains and muscle, I mean, you know. That's what it is with that. And that's what the truckers, gonna go with the truckers, see, on the road, and they got it on that trucking side, and that's how we gotta get doing, you know. On the truckers going north and south. So this is going north and south, and that's how we gotta get doing with that. They're going north and south with that, and that's how we gotta get. Because I'm going east, right? And that way, this bus is going west, east. So then that's north. So north is that way. That's east, and that's south. That's where the border is with the United States, which we need to get rid of as soon as possible. Make a great census, create a common currency by implementing my DRT theory, the dead fusion theory, for the creation of the UE, and we get the rehabilitation of 3G, 4G, 5G, I guess, and going on the 6G in the future for Canada, United States, for security and service, because the new 911 Dragon protocols across Canada, United States is both. 911 is for both Canada and United States. So I started writing about a few years ago. I'm gonna say maybe started around my major works kind of begin around after I got out of being depressed and suicidal in 2017, when I crossed Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean. So when I crossed Canada coast to coast, ocean to ocean, that is when I got out of being depressed and suicidal, and that is of course my major turn of events in my life. Before that I was depressed. I was suicidal, and crossing Canada coast to coast made me come out of being depressed and suicidal, you know. Made me come out of being depressed and suicidal. So I was depressed and I was suicidal, and that event really changed my whole life, you know. that event made me come out of being depressed and suicidal. Crossing Canada coast to coast in 2017. Before that, I crossed Canada. I went in Vancouver, British Columbia in 2017 in August. Then in September, went to Halifax in 2017. Before that, I was depressed. I was suicidal. So that event changed my whole life. Before that, I was depressed. I was suicidal. And after that, I had a revelation crossing Canada. I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. Established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians and got out of being depressed. And now are my family, Quebecers, Canadians, North Americans. Yeah, my family, you know, and pledge your allegiance, legions, and that's the public workers salute. And got out of being depressed and I see somebody holding hands, hugging, and in the morning that always gives me some hope, because it's not all about Wall Street. It's Wall Street beginning soon. In about 7 minutes, Wall Street is gonna ring the bell and they're gonna start, actually 11 minutes or so. 9:30 is gonna start ringing that bell and they're gonna buy, sell, trade, gives 10% of every million you make, and let's build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum. $1.99 for tomatoes, 99 cents, that's good. 99 cents. That's a good deal. 149 too. Maybe when I come back, 199. Because I gotta go take care of the priorities and then budget, and that's gonna be that with that. But 99 cents is a good deal for tomatoes, you know. So 99 cents, and gotta think where they're from, because now we got the tariff war. And Trump, you made a mistake, granddaddy. I'm no Trump supporter. Have been and will continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match on the Canadian-US border ever since 2017. And correction, 2018, when Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel, you know. So that's what it is with that, and that's what it is with that, you know. So it's something which I gotta see, you know, on the go. So that's what it is. So the tomatoes really seem special, but probably homegrown. Maybe in a greenhouse. Greenhouses across Quebec, Canada, North America. Greenhouse, you know. I'm assuming, but I really don't know. So let's build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome where the Hardball Ball, aka Blackout Ball, was played. And once, of course, we're gonna tango, me and Donald Trump, tango, and we're gonna get that drill, and we're gonna build the forgotten goddess Dedie's temple, and on the Canadian-US border, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, the pyramid, Scarlet Crimson Pyramid, House of the Dragon, red, and the Rainbow People's Palace.
anonyme là. Adam, somebody in the back.
Gotta print for the tax. push me. You okay, buddy?
Yeah, don't worry about me. Thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. to do. One more to do. 50. Finally. That's it.
Hello, how's it going? Yeah. Okay. My partner's coming in 10 minutes. Remember that this exists. If I steal about one a day, okay? Better. So. That's nice and clean. 18 pages. This is more fuzzy, yeah? The rest looks good.
All right. Oh yeah, gotta wash my hands. Microbes, just bacteria. Oh, Purell. Hello, hi. Do you have this hand sanitizer? Oh, it's there.
Yeah.
Juste pour me laver, parce que je viens de toucher, fait que je sais pas, tu sais, les microbes, les germes. 2-3 fois, s'il te plaît. Pour toutes les mains, merci les deux mains. Bye, bonne journée. So I asked in French for the disinfectant to wash my hands, you know, because I don't know, you know, so I'm gonna, smells okay, that's what I asked in French for the disinfectant, so I gotta go, 10 seconds, 11, 12, 13. What they do, you know, so that's what they do with that, you know. That's what they do. I gotta get it on that love, you know. So super important to disinfect because I don't know how many people touched it. So that's just a job done, and now I get into another job, and then we another job, and it's 24/7, you know. Love you truckers, stay safe on the road. Love you truckers, love you truckers, love you truckers, stay safe on the road. I'm just gonna double check. Gonna double check here in the sun. Revolution! You gotta put in that red. Dragon, that's what I said. Double check before I go to do the tax, you know. Gotta check. I didn't forget anything there. I'm gonna double check the USB key, USB. I've gotta find some USB keys. I've written tens of thousands of pages of philosophy, geopolitical, theoretical analysis, and all that good stuff. And I gotta see if I can find $1 to try to get those tomatoes, but I don't know if they have tax. So it may change over there. So alrighty, that's how we're gonna go get it now, and turn my head left and right here before I cross the street. And greenhouse grown. Salut!
C'est $1, s'il vous plaît.
Ouais, c'est pour ça que je viens d'acheter, c'est un bon prix.
Ah ouais?
Merci.
En plus, c'est organique.
No way.
Ouais, c'est organique.
Oh, nice.
Bon.
Nice. Organique, ça veut dire c'est mieux que les autres. Merci mon cher, bonne journée à vous.
Bonne journée aussi.
Ciao, ciao.
Bon, bye.
So it says it's good because it's organic, but 99 cents, you know, that's a good deal, and gotta put it in the back. And I got some lunch, I guess. I'm grateful, thankful, 99 cents, and maybe I'll come back tomorrow, see if there's still any left. Try to check at the bank and buy 3 and make myself a big tomato salad. This I'm gonna make with some bread, and I think I have a slice of salami left over. So now we're heading back west. I'm just gonna be prudent, put this in the back here on the side. Oh, it's my time to cross. Nonetheless, turn your heads left and right, you know. when you cross the street, nonetheless, super important. Turn your heads left and right when you cross the street, nonetheless. So I'm gonna bag it up. Butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, farmers, all involved, you know. Production, distribution of food. I gotta be thinking about them and sending them some LOVE. Now we're going west. So we went east and now west, and then we're gonna go furthermore. After the tax, we're gonna have to go do some of that laundry, work out, train, exercise, and open for business. Financially stressed. I'm tight broke, but gotta be grateful, you know. I was able to get those tomatoes. I got some bread, piece of bread, a bun of bread at home. I got some salad and some sandwich, and I'm gonna be able to do what I do on the daily, because it's geopolitics, sports, fitness, rock and roll, you know. Dancing is my favorite sport and fitness activity. I can dance, Adrian, Hannah, Dragon, Rainbow Dragon, Acre, Priestess, or the GODDSS. Truckers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks. Truckers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks. Truckers on the road. Somebody gotta sing for them. Some of that rock, some of that roll. Dragon Army, here we go. Pledge your allegiance. The family gotta get comportment. Gotta get comportment so that you know, so that you free. Hanging up like a bees. Bees, you know, they going in the trees. And you know, I love that red. On the truck, you know, I said. And you know, tomorrow Habs gonna win that game. What's up? As I go ready to kiss, ready to dance, ready to do push-ups on the glance. I love rock and roll. Sometimes I can go into French and English rock and roll trances for like hours, you know. And it's just hours and hours and hours, and fitness and sports and geopolitics again. And, you know, I could correlate the geopolitics of the tax season in Canada, being that it's that tax season, Canada, you know. That tax season in Canada, you know. And I gotta give a shout out for the laborers, for the butchers, the truckers, train conductors. How about a little bit of something for the train, you know? For the trains, train conductors, the bus drivers, grocery store clerks, hey, plumbers, taxi drivers, welders. With the tariffs, I guess it's a bit on the stress, you know, and it's a bit stressful times for many, and that's how we're gonna go do it now, and we're gonna go back west. Sun is on the south, and let's unite few, support my DRT. I'm going to now discuss the DRT, debt refusion theory, because I'm on the subject. So the debt refusion theory is my theory, protocol call for the North American civilizational complex for both Canada and United States to create a common currency known as the UE, U.Universal, E.Exchange, U.Unit, the Universal Exchange Unit. And of course, I'm going to discuss the DRT. My debt refusion theory includes monetary integration theory. Monetary integration theory is the financial theory, which of course was implemented in the European Union in the European Union back in the 90s, in the 90s, in the European Union back in the 90s, you know. So that is a financial theory which the Europeans implemented, and that's what we have to implement, you know. We have to implement that theory and have to implement that theory with that, and we got to get it on the go. Here is again that building which I will to refinance, the reconstruction, rebuilding, maybe rainbow. I have several ideas I've written down paper, you know, but you know, money is to buy, sell. So the DRT is the only solution to where we are now financially with the current financial situation. Why do I make that statement? Since due to the fact that last year we paid 46.5 billion in interest. Compute that number, since a billion is not 7 zeros, not 8 zeros, a billion has 9 zeros. $1 billion is the equivalent of 1,000 million. Of 1,000 million, of 1,000 million, 1,000 million. So that is 9 zeros, right? 9 zeros. 9 zeros. So that is fundamentally 1,000 million, you know? So 1,000 million is, of course, the equivalent of 1 billion. So billion computes to 1,000 million. So the number which we paid on the public debt was 46,000 million. 46,000 million. 46,000 million. 46,000 million. So that number was 46,000 million. That was a huge number. Can you compute that number for yourself? 46,000 million. That is a staggering amount, you know. So just a number so big that, of course, there's no other way but my DRT, debt refusion team, for the creation of the universal exchange rate. So I'm going to explain it as simple as I can. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. We have to, because last year the amount of interest which we paid on the public debt was 46.5 billion. 46.5 billion. That's 46.5 billion. 46.5 billion. That is a staggering amount. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt. Because think about it, because in 2020, 2021, the number was 20.3 billion. 20.3 double is 40.6. So the number equivalates to more than double. 20.3 double is 40.6. 40.6. So the number was more than double. More than double. 20.3 times 2 was 40.6. 40.6. So that number translates to more than double. So make a correlation that if an individual's debt servicing, in other words, interest which he pays doubles, that means that the individual has to cut and reduce the spending. So there's no way out of this situation where we are now presently. You have to cut and reduce the spending, because consequently the amount of interest which we paid was 46.5 billion. 46.5 billion is a major amount of number. The number is just a huge number. So 46.5 billion. So 20.3 was in 2020, 2021. That was the number. What was the number? That's what it is with the number. So basically, the number has more than doubled. More than doubled. More than doubled. So 20.3 times 2, that's 40.6. Consequently, if a citizen, individual citizen, if that happens to be the financial reality for an individual citizen, that means that he, she, they also have to reduce and cut the spending. Think about it. 20.3 times 2 is 40.6. Let's reduce it from the macro level to the micro level. So from the macro level to the micro level, if an individual, of course, goes from 156 double, that's 312. 312. So if it's more than double, that means from 156 to 333. 156 double is 312. Mathematically, 312, that means 333, more than double. 333 more than double. So basically, an individual citizen has to cut the spending, right? Because the consumption and unless the salary also doubles, because it eats away at the budget. the interest. The more the interest payments increase, and you have to pay, the more interest you pay, the more you, unless your salary in parallel increases, also in parallel. If your salary also increases in a parallel way, D for Dragon or D for Deutschland. D for Dragon or D for Deutschland. So those are just the fundamental mathematical principia which apply from the micro and the citizen level. Myself, I don't have credit cards, but I pay 10,000. I pay 10.44% interest. 10.44% interest. That means that we have 10.44% interest. 10.44% interest on $10,000, which I pay, you know. So consequently, if my interest payments also increase, then I would also have to cut the spending. But mine have been steady, right? So now, in the public, we're on the verge of a public financial collapse due to the fact of how much interest we paid. Because the interest is so much. So it's not sustainable. We cannot sustain it because our GDP didn't double. So basically that's the simplicity of the math. Because our GDP, our economy didn't double. It takes decades to double. But due to COVID, and I had COVID, I survived COVID, was like death, pestilence, and disease was like death, pestilence, and disease. COVID was like death, pestilence, and disease. I know when I say it sounds like a rock and roll, hardcore, death, trash metal song, which somebody might sing, death, pestilence, and disease, am I in me, please? But that's how I felt in 2020, February, March. I thought I was going to die, and I survived, and here I am, presenting on the table due to the curse of Asperger's, the DRT, debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE, the Universal Exchange Unit, the DRT, debt refusion theory for the creation of the Universal Exchange Unit, for the creation of the Universal Exchange Unit. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt. We're going to create all the public and the private debt. We're going to take it all together. So that number, we're going to refuse it. So again, this is the only solution, or something which resembles my debt refusion theory, which in my DRT is also integrated monetary integration theory. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt, my 10,000, your 10,000, all the debt. My eye, my right eye. It's like a piece of black dust, or black, kind of reddish white. It's fine now. It was just a few seconds. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt. We're gonna convert it into US dollars. Including my $10,000. Again, we're on the verge of a public financial collapse, because what are we gonna cut? Mr. Connie, what are we going to cut? Sanitation, public works, the police, the prisons, sanitation. So we have to reduce this. We have to reduce the budget. There's no way out of the situation. We have to reduce the budget. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt. We're going to convert it to US dollars. We're going to add it with the US dollars. So we're going to add it with the US dollars. All the public and the private debt. Again, there's no way out of this, because again, we paid 46.5 billion in interest. 46.5 billion in interest. 46.5 billion in interest. Could get this house for my anonymous friend, and me, you know. Could get this house for my anonymous friend and me. Split 50-50 for my anonymous friend and me here. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. We're gonna, of course, create all the public and the private debt, and we're gonna create it. And we're gonna create the UE. So all the public and the private debt. Let me go through here, right? So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt. My 10,000, your 10,000, your 10,000. Again, what are we gonna cut? We have to cut something. We cut the prisons, the police, RCMP, sanitation, housing, healthcare or something has to be cut, because the interest only has more than doubled in just 3 years, and yes due to COVID. So there's no other way but my DRTT or something which resembles it. So we're going to take all the public and the private debt. So my 10,000, your 10,000, their 10,000, my 10,000, your 10,000, our 10,000. So all the public and the private debt, we're going to convert it into US dollars, including my 10,000. All that money, we're going to add it up. That money with the United States, we're going to create the UE, Universal Exchange, and we're going to create a new currency, and all the public-private debt is going to be the initial money supply for this new central bank. The initial money supply for this new central bank, the initial money supply for this new central bank, the initial money supply for this new central bank. So all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt. I like that. Positive messages, LOVE. Positive messages. I like that idea. Love you, work out, train, you're great. Love, encourage you to hug like you never hugged before with consent. Encourage you I like that, love that. Encourage you to hug like you never hugged before. So the DRT is a positive thing. So we're gonna take all the public and the private debt, all the public and the private debt, and we're gonna convert it into US dollars. All the public and the private debt, my $10,000, your $10,000, all the debt. I got 10,000, so mine is going to be 10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. All that money is going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank. For a new central bank, for a new central bank, for a new central bank. All that money is going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank. All the public and the private debt. All the public and the private debt is going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank. This is when it's going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank. So all my 10,000, your 10,000 coast to coast with the United States. With that money, we're going to rebuild the infrastructure, mass finance fitness, mass finance citizens to work out, train, exercise, mass finance the rebuilding and building of those 44 tunnels. Constructing 44 tunnels, 44 in case of a thermonuclear war. Mass finance citizens, get rid of the border, do a great North American census, and of course, mass finance project for the rehabilitation of the criminal population and North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act, and of course, in order to help in building those 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war, and mass finance fitness activity. Mass finance fitness, mass finance joy, mass finance tourism because it did me great good, and mass finance a lot of things for pleasure and purpose, and mass finance tourism, mass finance the citizens of the North American Collective, create a common passport, common currency, and rebuild the aqueducts, the infrastructure, lay foundations for the complementary covenant, all cooperative institutions of the dancing goddess and the dragon kingdom, the North American integrated imperial SSD force, the North American imperial SSD force for security, service, and defense. For security, service, and defense, only coast to coast, ocean to ocean. For security, service, and defense, integrated in new 911 SSD protocols for the North American Collective, because 911 is both for Canada and the United States. Both Canada and United States. Both for Canada and the United States. 911 is both for them, and that's how we're gonna get doing with that. So, new 911 protocols, and for the construction workers, bakers, butchers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, rehabilitation, re-embellishment, and that is what we're going to be doing with that, and we got to get a little bit of that work with that, and that's what we're going to have to get on that. HYDRATE, hydration, and that is something which we have to do, and something which we have to transmit, and something which we have to be on the generational side of things, and something which we got on the now to do it at Dragon Army, the North American Imperial Coliseum, to build for sportis in perpetuitis, for sportis perpetuitis, for sportis in perpetuitis, for sportis in perpetuitis, and for sports in perpetuitis on the Canadian-US border, on the Canadian-US border, on the Canadian-US border, for sports in perpetuitis on the North American civilizational complex, and I gotta get it on that. So to build the North American Imperial Coliseum and the Forgotten Goddess Temple, you know, because I created my surviving to the Forgotten Goddess Temple, and that's what it is with that, and that's how we gotta get it doing on that. The North American Imperial Coliseum and the pyramid, House of the Dragon, you know, the House of the Dragon Pyramid and Imperial People's Coliseum, and that's what we're gonna get doing with that, and so we're gonna get doing on the go, you know. So here we are. Turn your heads left and right before you cross the street. Super important. And this is a nice blue car. I love red as my favorite color, but that's how we gotta get doing, you know. The North American People's Imperial Coliseum, and that's how we gotta get doing, you know. So getting on the XYZ, you know, so it's something which we gotta be doing on the XYZ with the love side of things, you know. So here we are, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, the Forgotten Goddess Temple, and that's how we're gonna get doing for the love, and gotta get it for that love. But see who's transponing here, who's transpiring on the go, and we're gonna get it to get that passing on the street here, because we gotta wait for the cars to pass first, I guess, and that's how we gotta get doing for the love, and that's how we gotta get doing for the situational aspect, and that's how we gotta get doing for the love side of things, and we gotta get it for now, you know. Something which we gotta get doing for now, and something which we gotta implement because we're on the verge of a public collapse, you know. The DRT, debt refusion theory, you know, for the creation of the universal exchange unit is something which we have to implement, and we have to correlate, and we have to concord in the concordium of the go there, and to be implemented as soon as possible is the only solution. Again, there's no other solution but my DRT for the creation of the UE. Pledge your allegiance, that's the song, and that's what we gotta get doing with that, and that's what we gotta get doing on the love, you know. They're getting on the side, and here they are. Gotta wait again, I guess. Can go actually. So the DRT, debt refusion theory, you know, for the creation of the UE, and that's how we gotta sanitize, and that's how we gotta get implemented with that, and that's how we gotta get doing with the love side of things, and clean it as we go, and do it as we go, step by step. Now, the debt refusion theory for the creation of the UE is, of course, the fundamental problem we have is the interest which we pay. So there's no other way around it. So that's how we gotta get doing, you know. LOV, and let's go with the rock and roll for that.